In this series, you will learn how to model a realistic 3D human skull like this one without sculpting and by only using two reference images for creating a super detailed texture. You can even download these very reference images for free by going to blenderfrenzy.com and signing up for a freebies membership, which is useful if you want to follow along with the videos exactly. And if you want access to even more members only stuff like extra videos and the completed 3D Skull model for download, check out the Plus and Pro memberships. But this course is free and beginner friendly and goes at a pace that is fairly easy to follow along. However, I do assume you are already somewhat familiar with Blender or at least how to navigate in a 3D program. So maybe not necessarily for the ultra beginner. In this video, we will model out the shape of the main skull, so let's get started. Welcome to part 4 of the Blender Skull Basic Modeling course. I am Justin, and this is my favorite part of the entire thing, where we get to slap some textures on there to make it look super realistic. And so what you see here is actually just really basic texture projection, UV manipulation, and we're just using the reference images plus an ambient occlusion texture mixed together to make something that looks like this. So this is basically just my little prop skull. All of the lighting and shine and everything that you see on here is actually just from the original image. So it's sort of just baked on. And of course it's mirrored. I'll show you how to do this. And then we will clean it up a bit to make it look something like this, where we kind of get rid of some of the lines and the shine that was originally on there, and we keep the shine on the teeth. But this is still just an emission texture. There's no lighting information here. It's just kind of all baked on. But then we will take it one step further and make a basic shader so that it can work with Eevee, and then we have it reacting to the light in the scene like this, which is also reacting to the HDR lighting in the world itself, or we can just take that off and make it just the background of the default world there. Actually, we can take that down a little bit too, like that. And this you can also see we've added a bump texture so that you can see all the grooves and stuff there. So that is our goal. All right, so this is what we have so far. Up till now, we've been using just basic polygon modeling and modeling out this human skull here. And if you haven't seen the first 3 videos, I highly recommend watching those first. We have 2 main objects here, the jaw and the skull. But before we merge them together, I'm going to duplicate these, of course, and save them to my backups, which you've probably seen me do if you've watched the other videos. Before we merge, I also want to get rid of the mirror modifier. So we're just going to delete the mirror modifier on both of these. And to merge 2 things in Blender, all you have to do is select one of them and then shift select the one you want to merge into. So the one you have selected last is the one that's going to be the main one, which is skull. With both of them selected, right click and choose join, which is also Control J for the shortcut. And now they've both been joined into skull. And so that's just one skull object now. I'm going to go out of subdivision surface here and go into edit mode, and we're going to close this here, take this loop M and merge at last. I'm also going to take this loop and make it a little bit bigger and then move it in just a little bit here like this, something like that. Let's see what that is. It looks like in subdivision surface. Yeah, I just want this to be just a little bit bigger. Oh, that's all right. Okay, let's go into front view here and enable our overlays. Just going to come in here and see this blue line here. We want to make sure that the teeth don't cross that. Proportional editing, I'm just going to grab this and just move that over. We can also maybe rotate it a little bit just because we're going to add another mirror modifier here. So that's good. Let's go ahead and add that modifier, mirror modifier. There we go. So we have these teeth that are not clipping in to each other. Make sure that these are, though, we want these to be close enough to each other. Oh, we need to enable clipping there. Keep those far apart enough, but make sure that they're close. So this is not close enough yet. So go in and then click to let go, and then we can G to grab and move that back again with the clipping enabled there. And I think the rest of the head is going to be fine. Let's look under here. Yeah, maybe this here. So that's fine. Okay, and let's see what we have. Make sure that we don't have these seams here. So I'm going to take this edge loop here and then just make sure we're in individual origins, scale that down a little bit, not in proportional editing mode though. And I'm going to disable overlay so I can see the effect that's having. Yeah, so you can see I'm just scaling it in so we get rid of that ridge that's going down here. Now that scaled this in a little bit too much, but that's okay. We can actually pull that back out. So let's come back in here and we'll take this and go in here and let's just disable this for a second. Let's get rid of the clipping here. Let's pull this out. Yeah, I merged the wrong things here. Okay. Pull these out. There we go. Okay, and then we'll take these edges and just grab them and pull them down. Grab these and pull those out a little bit. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Because we've got this line here that's coming down. There we go. Okay. This one, grab and move that forward a little bit. That should fix our little ridge. Kind of. Grab Y. Oh, that's too much. Oh yeah, that helped a little bit. Make sure we pull these all the way over to the right so that they're not overlapping each other. Yeah, that's okay. That's good enough. So let's save it now. And you know what I'm going to do. Duplicate and backups. Let's start texturing this, but we're going to do it really simple, really quickly, just using project from view, and we go to UV editing for this. Let's go to front mode and scroll in here. Select the skull and come to material preview mode. We don't have a material on this yet, so let's come over to our materials, click new, and we'll just title this matte skull. I'm going to change the surface to emission. So it should be all white now. Let's go into edit mode and I'm going to select everything. You project from view, and then we have something that looks like this. You also have options down here, correct aspect, orthographic, camera bounds. But now we have this, and if we choose our skull front, you can see right here, it did actually skew it. And I'm not entirely sure why it does that. And maybe if we do, where our view is right now, if we do Control-Alt-0 to bring our camera here, and then we can just take our camera, let's go out of edit mode, of course, take our camera G and then ZZ to just scroll that back a little bit, and then turn background images on and add in the skull front in our camera so that we can just kind of position it there. We can actually make this opacity a little bit better. So here's the front, here's the back, just like that. Select the skull, go into edit mode, and select everything U and then project from view. There we go. Now we have in the perspective of the image. Now the image, because it was 1920 by 1080 and our camera is 1920 by 1080, that's why this works. But going out of camera now and coming in here, let's come back to material. And for the color and the material, we're going to use an image texture and we're going to use the skull front. Boom! And there you have our if we come back out to layout and go to material preview up here, you can see this is what we have. So it's a rough start, but you can start to see the shape taking place, and we'll make this look so much better very soon. and very easy. So basically we want to get the lined up here to the basic shape of everything. And you know what? I think I am, instead of doing this, I think I'm going to stay in front mode and not doing it in perspective mode. I'm going to do it in orthographic mode. I'm going to project from view again. Oh, hey, look at that. And this time it worked in front mode. I have no idea. I don't know. It's Blender. But I'm going to scale this up here just to try to get it as close as I can. Something like that. I'm trying not to get too outside of the bounds. But here, this is actually even looking a little bit better already. So things are starting to line up there. Let's go back to UV editing and let's pull this out a little bit. Let's go down here and down in UV maps. I'm going to name this one front. So this is going to be our front UV map. Okay, let's do the same thing for the side. Let's add one. I'm going to call this side so we can select and put it in render. There's two things here. And let's change this over here, the skull front. We're going to change this to skull right. And then we're going to go press 3 here to go into right mode, and then select everything, you project from view. And it's the same thing. We're going to take this, and then we're going to line this up like this. As much as I can, I'm actually going to use the teeth to kind of guide me here, where I think this should probably go. Okay, that's good enough for now, but you can see it's projecting still from the front because it's still using the front texture for this. So for this, what we're going to do is go into our shading workspace, and I like to just bring down the world opacity and then come to overlays and uncheck HDRI preview, get rid of all of that distraction. And then we can scroll in here, and here's our node setup. So in our material tab, remember when we had set our material and we had chosen emission here for the surface, here's our material output where everything is plugged into so we can see here, and here's our emission. That's what this is here. And then here's our texture. So we can pull this out. This is the skull front, skull FO2. And I'm going to take this, I'm going to Shift D to duplicate that. This one will be our front, and then I'll change this one to our side, our right side, and boom, there we go. So now this one that's plugged into the emission is plugged into the material output, and that's what we see here. It's projecting it from the side. And make sure that in our data tab in our UVs that we have side selected. If I have front selected, then it's going to be using our front UVs, which look like this. So if I grab and move that around, that's what you see there. But we don't want the front, we want the side UVs showing like that. And back in the shading, this is what it looks like. So from the side, it looks really good. And from the front, it looks terrible. But then if we take the color and plug that into the emission and then choose front here, then the front looks pretty good. And then the side looks terrible. Now something that's going to make it so much easier than continually selecting this one and this one and this one and this one back and forth is we can add in our own UV. If we come into add, the Shift A, and then input, we can choose UV map here. And if I scroll in, I can come down here. This one will be for the front. Plug that into the front. And then I'm going to Shift D to duplicate this one down here. And this one will be the side, and we'll plug that into the right side. So now when I plug this one in, it automatically chooses the correct UV map. And then if I plug this one in, it automatically chooses the UV map for the front. Awesome. So now we know how to go back and forth. Let's see how to mix these two together. And I'm going to actually bring this out here like this, and then click and drag the corner here and pull that up. And then this will be our preview texture here. So if I select this one shows. If I select this one shows. Let's go here and bring this in. So we have a little bit more room here to work with. I'm going to take these, bring them out. Oh, and I noticed my screencast keys only work in the layout view. I'm going to keep them that way. It's fairly easy to follow along. I'll try to say what I'm pressing if it's complicated, but basically to add stuff in, you can just do add here or Shift A to add in. Shift A, color, mix RGB. I'm going to plug that in right here. I am going to keep the side one in the top, and I'm going to plug the front in the bottom. And now it's mixing them together, you can see here, but it's mixing them together at like they're overlapping each other. So they're overlapping each other because this is at zero point 0.5. There's a half influence of each of them mixing together over the whole skull. So if I go down to 0, it's going to be color 1, which is currently the right side. That's going to be at 100%. And a factor of 1 is going to be completely color 2, which is the front in our case here. So if you want to think about the factor is actually affecting color 2. So remember, factor and color 2 are directly related to each other. At 1, color 2 is at 100%. At 0, color 2 is at 0%. But we don't want to mix them because we don't want them to overlap like this, and we don't want to switch back and forth. We want the front to be on the front and the side to be on the side. So how can we do this? Well, there's a fairly easy way to do this, and that is using a gradient texture. So to demonstrate this, I'm actually going to come up here. We're going to add in, first, I'm going to add in a texture coordinate node. I'm just going to type in coordinate in the search, and we grab the texture coordinate here. Control Shift and select this. It will plug it in automatically. This is if you have the Node Wrangler add-on. If you don't, just go to the Preferences, Add-ons, and enable the Node Wrangler. But I'm going to Control Shift and then click a couple times to where it comes down to the object. And now you can see the object coordinates here, which is the coordinates of the skull object based on the origin, which right now the origin is directly in the center of the nose. If I come here and turn on origins, you can see this little orange dot. We will change that later. But for now, it doesn't actually matter because we're not going to be using the origin of the skull. We're going to be using another object. But let's add in our gradient texture here to show you what that looks like. So if I search again for gradient, plug that right in here, and now we have a linear gradient texture. Okay, so if I now hover over the 3D preview, Shift A to add in an empty sphere, now I have this that I can move around, and we're going to tie the gradient texture to this object. So select the skull again, and I'm going to go ahead and pin this material. So even if I select the empty, we still see this material. So I'm going to double click here and empty, call this gradient. And then we're going to come down here to object and add in our gradient as the object that's going to influence the gradient. So now if I take this object and I start to move it, you can see it affects the gradient texture. A couple things we can do, if we are to rotate on the z-axis, you can see it's rotating it this way. Let's type in 90, okay, and then that is the opposite direction. So let's RZ 180 to get it like this, and then if we bring it in, you can see the influence that this is having. So here we go. This is really what we want. And I'm even going to rotate it on the X like this a little bit here. Okay, but I'm going to add in here, we can do a couple things. Let's try a color ramp here, and then we can kind of start to clamp that. Oh, and that for some reason it turned that around, and I'm not entirely sure why it did that. So instead, I'm going to undo that. We'll just get out of that. Let's do a vector math here. Change add to multiply, and then if we come down here to the vector, we can multiply this, and this will give us a little bit more brightness towards the front there. But I don't necessarily want this. There's a little bit too harsh of a fall off there. So I'm going to adjust just the X here a little bit. We can also scale this out a little bit. I'm going to scale it on the Z a little bit here. Something you can also do is choose spherical or quadratic sphere, and that will give you this inside of here. And you can see it's, if I just mute this here, you can see a little bit better of what that looks like. So everywhere inside of the sphere, that's what it's going to look like. And we're going to use that for the eyes, because if we come back to linear here, you can see, let's enable this again here. There we go. You can see the eyes and the nose, we still have it black, but we want to make all of the front here as white as possible. So I'm going to Shift D to duplicate this, Alt S, Alt R to clear the rotation and the scale. And then we're going to choose our gradient 1 here, that's fine. And then we'll just choose that quadratic sphere. I'm going to mute this again so that we can kind of see what we have here. Actually, you know what? Let's just go ahead and duplicate these. And then we'll use this to multiply this. But instead of the multiply, we can actually Shift S to change this. Let's change it back to a color ramp. It's not actually recognizing that. I think I know why. This is a vector and this is not a vector. So I actually think I need to, if I Alt select this, I can drag it without disconnecting that, and then drag it over here and connect this up here. And then I think, there we go. Yeah, so then I can adjust it here. So it has to be on this side because this color can be plugged into that factor, whereas the vector from here can't, which is why we need to use a vector math. Okay, but let's come in here and then we'll just scale this up to make sure that all of the inside of the nose and the eyes are completely white. And I think that actually is pretty good. We can maybe even scale it down just a little bit here so it's not out here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to combine these two together. So let's take this one and let's just make sure this one is selected. Again, I'm Control Shift clicking on whichever one I want to plug into. That's with the Node Wrangler. Okay, change this back to linear, and then change this back to multiply, and then this needs to go to gradient. There we go. So we're going to take this one, and then we're going to add it to this one with a, if we add Shift A, color and mix RGB. We're going to take this one, plug that here, take this one, plug that here, and we're not going to mix them, we're going to add them together. So we're going to go click add and then Control Shift click on this, and now they have been added together, just like that. And maybe we do need to adjust this a little bit more here. I don't want it to be down here though. Can we adjust that to, oh, you know what? Maybe if I undo that, maybe the factor here. Okay, there we go. Let's bring that factor up to 1 for add because it's adding them both together instead of mixing between the two. And then we can also tighten this up, I think, like this. We can also tighten that up like this. Okay, I think this is good enough. I mean, we could always, you know, tweak it even more if I scale this on the Y. It's a little tricky trying to get everything inside of here without it affecting the sides here too much. Okay, but that's good enough for now. I like that. So we're going to actually take these here. Let's save it first. Select all of these and then Control G to put that in a group. So now it takes us inside the group. I'm just going to press Tab to go outside of the group, and now we have our group here. And if I open this here, double click here, and we're going to type mask. So this is going to be our mask. So this is going to tell us where the front of the face is going to be. Okay, so if I come in here, I'm just going to disconnect the side view here, the right side. And we're going to take that color 1 and bring that all the way down to black. Okay, and then if I control shift and click here on our emission, you can see it's all black because our factor is 0. And then again, if we bring that up, then we have our front texture on the whole thing. And because we're mixing between the two, back and forth. But now if we use our mask to tell us where that front is going to be, which is where all the white is on the front, we're going to plug that into the factor. And now you can see, oh, look at that. We have everywhere that white is on the front of the face, we have the front texture, which is awesome. And everywhere we don't have that white, it's this black texture. Now I could change this to any other color that I want, or I could change it to the skull right. So all we have to do is just plug this in here. And there you go. Now we have on the front, using the front projection and texture, and on the side, we're using the side projection and texture. And this is, if we go into layout again and disable our overlays, look at how far we've come in just a few steps. I mean, we are almost, I mean, you could even probably use this here as a prop if it was, somewhere in the background to something. So yeah, but we're not going to do that. We're going to continue to clean this up. One of the first things we want to do is these black areas. So anywhere you see black, that's where the UVs are hanging off of the image. So let's go to UV image editor here. Let's just hide our gradient empties here and go into edit mode. Let's go into the side, the right side. Oh, we are in the right side. So let's select our side now and then come down here, and you can see right here, these are all off of the image texture into the transparent area. So let's just turn on proportional editing mode and then grab some points and kind of pull these in a little bit here. And now you can see the black start to go away. Pull that down. And now I know that this is the cheekbone area, so I'm going to grab that and pull that up. Put this in more of the position of the cheekbone area, just using proportional editing and grabbing and moving the points and resizing that proportional. Now you can see if we turn off overlays here, you can see that a little bit better on what we're doing. Then we've got the underneath here. Let's grab these and move that up. They're going to have a lot of stretching back here, most likely. That's all right. I'm also going to pull the nose up here a little bit better. Make sure the eye and everything is lined up. Cheekbone. And we'll get the teeth in just a little bit here, but we're going to grab some of these. So it's not looking too bad already. Got rid of all of the black, most of that here. Oh, we got some right on the edge here, just a sliver. Like that, there we go. Awesome, save it. All right, so we've only used 2 textures so far, and we've just hacked them together by projecting them on the front and the side and mix them together, and we are already looking pretty cool here. Okay, so the next thing I would think I want to fix is the teeth. This could be pretty tedious depending on how perfectionistic you are, but let's go to our UV editing, and right here, if we select everything, you can see all of the points in here. But if I deselect everything, then you don't see anything in here. And then let's just take some of these faces here. You can start to see them populating in here. If this isn't happening for you, make sure this button up here says UV sync selection is turned off. So sync selection is kind of the opposite. So now if I click it in the UV, it will select it in the 3D mode. But if I have this unselected, then if I select it here, it'll show there. But if I select everything here, then nothing is selected here, it's just visible. It's a little bit tricky to figure out how. So then I still have to select here. So selection here and selection here are completely different in this mode. But what this allows us to do is come in here and just select our teeth. So let's just do the jaw because that's going to be the least cluttered. So I'm going to select a piece of the jaw, hover my mouse over here, press L to select everything that's linked. Press Shift H to hide everything that's not selected. I'm also going to come to our modifiers and disable our mirror modifier temporarily here. Okay, so now we've got some minimal geometry to work with. Go into Edge Select mode and then just select the middle edges of all of these teeth. We're going to grow the selection here. So just Shift Select these middle points here, like that. And then Control plus a few times to where we just are selecting all of the teeth, and then Shift H to hide everything else again. And I'm actually going to make a let's see, a face map group here of this. We're going to call these teeth bottom, and then I'm just going to say assign so that we can select them a little bit easier. But now you can see we can start to mold and shape these a little bit better. But even better than that is now we can come in here and just start selecting one of them. So if I select something on one and press L and linked, then it only shows that one. Perfect. And not only can I do that, but I'm going to re-project this. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to do this. I'm going to go right up here to where we're looking at the tooth straight on. Press U, project from view, and then it disappears, or it looks like it. But if we scroll out here, it projected it from the view. So we have to take this and just scale it down again, and we're going to move it back into place here. So we're going to move this all the way to this one here. And then we're just going to start to shape it. I'm going to go into tweak mode here so we can select it easier and just tweak these. And if we disable our overlays, we can see sort of what that's looking like. Yeah, it's not looking too bad. And here's a trick, if I can find them. I moved them around quite a bit. I might have to come up here and make sure I just select it. See, this is where this selection mode, okay, it's these two here. So I'm just going to take these outside of proportional editing and move these up into this area here. And it's a little trick to have a little like molar filling or cavity or whatever. It just makes it look a little bit more realistic there. Okay, so let's disable that sync selection again and L to see what we have. Yep, so something like that. So now we can select this one. And you don't have to select it first, it's just you have to make sure everything else is deselected and then hover your mouse over whatever, press L, and there we go. So I'm just going to do that for the rest of these here that we see on the side. Okay, so you notice that this is the last tooth here. Which is hidden by the jaw. So I'm just going to pick another tooth and we'll use that one instead. And I like this one, so we're going to do this. And just so you know, you can also do any of the teeth. So if I rotate this and I did this one, it works just as well. But I'm going to be consistent. I'm going to keep these on the bottom. Okay, so if you notice here, when I'm moving this around, this looks like it's like mixed influence with the front. So I'm going to put that here and then we'll go into the front, choose our front picture here. There we go. And now we can, let's do a project from view for our front as well. There we go. That looks a lot better. Okay, and just got to finish these teeth. I'm not going to do them one at a time this time. I'm just going to, I think, just select all of these here. And they're already basically projected from the front. So I can do the same thing here, select L for linked, and then just grab them individually. So now we've got our bottom teeth. Let's Alt H to see what that looks like. Okay, yeah, not too bad here. So let's do the top ones now. I'm going to just make sure we select this one only, Shift H, Shift H to hide that, and then come to the bottom here. Let's select our middle edges here. Control plus to get all of those. One more time. If I do one more time, is that going to be too much? Shift H to hide. That's selected too much. So let's take these, we'll hide those. Okay, and let's just hide those. And then we'll select these. And we will make a teeth top and a sign. Okay, so let's go here. What I'm going to do this time, let's do the front since we're already in the front. So I'm just going to do these three, L, 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 to select those that are linked. Deselect everything in here. L, take this one. Oh yeah, these are actually really close already. So I'm just going to keep them here. Just scale them and move them down a little bit. Okay, look at that. We've got the top teeth going. Let's Alt H to unhide everything. Okay, so now we've got the teeth looking pretty good. And we can probably clean up if we actually select, let's save it. If we select the top teeth, okay, let's deselect everything first. Select the top teeth. Let's also select the bottom teeth. Just gonna hide those for now. Select linked for the jaw, and then we can actually come down here and adjust the jaw as well for the gum lines here. Whatever you call these things, I know they're not gums. Alright, how's that looking? It's alright. And it actually already looks pretty good on the side on the top, so I'm not going to mess with that. Let's go to the front and in here. Alt H to unhide everything. And let's take a look at what we have so far. Let's turn our mirror modifier back on. All right, look at that. Getting there, we're getting there. Something down here in the cheek is bothering me. I don't know what that's all about. Let's see. A to select everything so we can see everything. Ah, here we go. Yep. So we still have some geometry hanging off. Let's just linked here. There we go. And we'll take these and pull these up. And of course, we got to pull these in, but it's not too bad because that's, again, this is from the side. Oh yeah, much better. Awesome. Okay. So here, if you just wanted to stop here, this is basically, you're basically done. Now we can line up the line if you want to keep that line in there. Let's go in the front. Yeah. So this line here, just gonna finagle with these. Okay, that's good enough. We're going to erase that line eventually anyway. But there you go. This is good enough. Now the nose, you can see a lot of stretching there, but we'll fix that in the next step. You can find this video and a whole lot more by going to my new website, blenderfrenzy.com, where you can access lots of free and members-only content, including extra tutorials, downloads, assets, blend files, Q&A live streams, and much more. Signing up helps support me, which in turn gives you more Blender content, so head on over to blenderfrenzy.com and become a member today.